Now, it says VirginiaIndianArchive.org. It says letter from Walter Plecker, January 1943. It says in a letter dated January 1943 and addressed to local registrars, physicians, health officers, nurses, school superintendents, and clerks of the court, Walter A. Plecker, the state registrar of vital statistics, warns his colleagues of parents whom he believes may be falsifying their children's racial designations and also listed by county are the surnames of families he designated mongrels. Plecker was charged with enforcing the Racial Integrity Act of 1924 and subsequent related legislation which banned interracial marriage in Virginia and asked for voluntary racial identifications on birth and marriage certificates. White was defined as having no trace of African ancestry, while all other people were defined as colored. Falsifying racial information on a government form was a felony. To accommodate elite Virginians who claimed Pocahontas and John Rolfe as ancestors, the law allowed for those who had 1/16 or less of the blood of the American Indian and have no other non-Caucasic blood to be deemed to be white persons. And the source was University of Virginia Library, Special Collections. It says coverage of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, 20th century. The Bureau of Vital Statistics, Richmond. So there you have it. That's a source that's talking about colored people, but it's not just that simple. That colored people didn't just refer to people as African ancestry. It was basically a category for American Indians that they wanted to strip away their Indian identity. So let's click on Racial Integrity Act. Now this is from the Encyclopedia of Virginia. Racial Integrity Laws, 1924-1930. It says racial integrity laws were passed by the General Assembly to protect whiteness against what many Virginians perceived to be the negative effects of racial mixing. They included the Racial Integrity Act of 1924, which prohibited interracial marriage and defined as white a person who has no trace whatsoever of any blood other than Caucasian. The Public Assemblies Act of 1926, which required all public meeting spaces by strictly segregated, and a third act passed 1930 that defined as black person who had even a trace of African American ancestry. This way of defining whiteness as a kind of purity and bloodline became known as the one-drop rule. Okay. So, and it said here, Virginia Indians were particularly incensed by the laws and by Plecker in particular because the state seemed intent on removing any legal recognition of Indian identity in favor of the broader category colored. Okay. So then we're going to go here. I'm going to type in Racial Integrity Act. So we're going to skip down, and it says here, the Racial Integrity Act required that all birth certificates and marriage certificates in Virginia to include the person's race as either white or colored. The act classified all non-whites, Native Americans, as colored. Okay, so as we see there, then we're going to look up so they specifically said that, right? That's who colored were. Colored people. That's who they were. Or who they are. Who they was listed as. Then we're going to type in colored American Indians. Hypo descent. Okay, hypo descent. It says in societies that regard some races or ethnic groups of people as dominant or superior and others as subordinate, meaning below them, or inferior. Hypodescent refers to the automatic assignment by dominant culture of children of a mixed union or sexual relation between members of different social economic groups or ethnic groups to the subordinate group. The opposite practice is hyperdescent, in which children are assigned to the race that's considered dominant or superior. Parallel practices of patrilineality, matrilineality, cognate descent, which assign race, ethnicity, religion according to the father, mother, and some combination. Then it says attempts to eliminate mixed race population by legal means, anti-miscegenation laws. So I'm trying to skip down to a part that would be considered as relevant. Let's see. And it says here, the Act established a binary classification system for vital records, classifying persons as white or black, Negro at the time, and latter was effectively a catch-all term for all peoples of color. Native Americans were classified as colored. And then you learned that the Native Americans, which is basically another term for American Indians, that they were included as colored. But you don't see people such as this. You don't see people such as this, what they call Native Americans. You don't see these type of folks who came from out of Asia. They claim about roughly, 10,000 years ago. You don't see people that look like this underneath the colored signs. You only see people that was considered as black or Negro under the colored signs. And now they're showing you these people right here. See this image of this man, and it says white women, colored women. You see this image of this man right here from the Jim Crow era, and they had mentioned that as well. So that's all you basically see. people that they want to call African American who are not Africans, they refer to them as colored people. Now let's look at this right here. The Colored American Magazine. Okay. So the only people that you see that's listed as colored or who's been known in this country as being colored were the people that they're calling today African American, or they used to call American Negroes, and also blacks. So it's not the people that they call Native Americans who were called colored. It's the Indians that looked black and was called African or called black or called Negro, who they had called colored. So it's easy to see which Indians they had put that label on throughout the southeastern United States. Right here you see an image of an Indian holding up a birth certificate with colored on it. And this is an image of a birth certificate with colored on it.